What's up, everybody? I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2020 Lexus GX 460. And this interior is pretty dated. The actual last time that they refreshed this interior was 2010. We are sitting in a 10-year-old interior, and certain parts feel like that. Other parts aren't too bad, but it's an interesting vehicle to be in.
Yeah, it's actually crazy because I did say plenty of times when we got in this car, is this screen from 2009?
Yeah, it really actually is. I think 2010 was when they refreshed this whole system and put this new screen in. And anyway, we'll get into the infotainment in a minute. But overall, you know, there are some parts of the interior that do have some nice padding and stuff, and it's not all bad. But the first thing here, sitting down in these seats, we have these leather seats that are perforated here, and they also have heating and cooling, which is very nice. So that, you know, helps it to fit in with all the other luxury competitors that also have heated and cooled seats.
But the cooled seats do take about, I would say, 10 minutes to actually start working once you turn them on. But they still work, and they still work well.
Yeah, well, and I was a little bit sweatier earlier, and I felt it could cool off pretty quickly at that point. But if you're not, like, you know, a sweaty mess, then it's probably going to take a while to really get nice and cold.
Yeah.
They aren't super powerful, you're right. So that is something that is an interesting thing to note. But, you know, the bolstering and stuff is all fine for a luxury SUV, you know.
And they're nice and cushy. I like them.
Yeah, I think they're actually really comfortable. And combined with the comfortable ride here of the GX, which I'll be posting a driving review as well. You can go watch that to hear how this drives. But the soft ride combined with these soft seats, it makes for a very comfortable experience. Next is the steering wheel here in the GX, which is really great. It's the same as most other Lexus SUV wheels. Has a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches, just a few buttons here on the front of it. This one still does have the old cruise control setup with a little stock here that they've been doing since, I don't know, the 90s. But I actually prefer this stock still because it means you don't have too many buttons here on the steering wheel. You do have a few buttons here for the more advanced adaptive cruise control and stuff that you now have here with the GX as standard for 2020. And so overall, it is a nice steering wheel here. It is also heated, which is great, and has a nice leather part that I think feels really good. The gauges are also really nice looking here in the GX. Now, of course, they're not as futuristic as all the European competitors and stuff are here in the year 2020, but yeah, they're nice, classy looking analog dials. You have the little digital portion there in the middle, which is color and fairly high resolution, and we'll show you, you know, all your basic readouts and stuff. They're nothing too advanced, but most people in this segment, you know, they're not going to be expecting anything too crazy, and so it's okay. It's not too bad. That doesn't feel like it's 10 years old. But moving over to the center of the dashboard here, that is where it does feel like it's 10 years old. And it's just kind of crazy just how dated it is. Now, you know, Lexus is guilty in like the LX that we just reviewed, that interior a couple of weeks ago. That, you know, it has like a 5-year-old Lexus system with their controller and stuff like that. This is so old it doesn't even have any of the controllers, which some people might actually be happy about because a lot of people don't like those Lexus controllers. But I mean, this screen, the graphics are just so low resolution. I mean, it is just appalling how dated it looks. And I mean, this vehicle, by the way, is $71,000. It's like, come on, there's got to be another screen in the Toyota parts bin and the Lexus parts bin to put in here. Maybe, you know, not every couple of years, but I mean, this is 10 years old. Like, they refreshed the outside of the GX here for 2020, and, you know, they've made a few little changes here and there over the years. Like, just someone, please. I mean, you can go to Best Buy and get a better head screen put in here than what you have in this. It's just really upsetting. It doesn't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, of course, either. I'm honestly surprised it even has Bluetooth. That's how old this feels. So, it's just kind of crazy. You know, the navigation maps all look old, everything else. It does have satellite radio, but that's not great for the, you know, display either.
And it's not just the display, it's everything around it. There's buttons, and they look fine, but it just looks like it's this huge chunk of plastic that's just there, and it just really looks old. And I feel like if you're spending almost 72 grand on a car, you're gonna want the nice interior. I just think that you would really need to have something that that matches that price tag.
Right, I agree. And I mean, because if you don't care about luxury, just go buy a Toyota Land Cruiser or Sequoia or, you know, any of those other trucky Toyotas for less money and save yourself, you know, if you don't care about it, luxury stuff. So yeah, I don't know, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, even the screen down at the bottom that shows you your time and your climate, that even is just dated.
Yeah, well, and another thing that it also annoys me about this climate system is that there is no manual controls for the fan speed. And so you have to go into this dated screen, hit the climate thing, and then hit the on-screen buttons to turn down the fan speed. And that's something that a lot of people do frequently. I mean, you have the auto climate control, but you know, to actually take manual control, I mean, all modern vehicles seem to have some type of fan speed controller outside of the infotainment system. And so why that's only in the screen is a little bit annoying as well. And also, another thing, you have volume and tune knobs. So I am grateful that they have those, but with those volume and tune knobs, they're very shallow. And so I think if you had, you know, larger hands or if you had gloves on or something, these would be kind of hard to even use, honestly. So that's something that I don't think is great either.
They definitely need to be out a little bit more to be using those.
Yeah, so just all kinds of weird stuff that, again, they should have improved over the years and they just didn't, and it's a little bit of a bummer. Now, it is paired up with this Mark Levinson 17-speaker stereo system, and that is a nice option that this one has, but it still is only 330 watts, and also with all the other more modern Lexus Mark Levinson systems, it's all way higher wattage, so even with that, you're paying extra for an upgraded stereo, but you don't really get, you know, a ton of wattage. I know wattage isn't everything. You do have 17 speakers, which is a good speaker count, but still just, you know, would think there would be a little bit more wattage out of this Mark Levinson system. But moving beyond this whole center stack, you do have a good control here for your heated and cooled seats with this little scroll wheel, which I think is a pretty efficient way of doing that. And then you have all these other buttons around the shifter here for all your off-road modes, which is one of the things with the GX here. It's one of the few body-on-frame truck-based SUVs that can actually do some legit off-roading that a lot of the more fancier European stuff can't do. And so that's nice that it has all that stuff. But all this plastic around that area is just cheap plastic. You have cheap plastic here by the center stack and stuff. Now you do have some nice leather padded surfaces here on the side, so that kind of saves your knees a little bit. You know, and I mean, some of the other touch points are pretty nice, but like the tops of the doors just feel a little cheap for a Lexus. I just feel like they're doing a better job with all their other vehicles these days. And this, again, is just something they haven't bothered to mess with here in the past 10 years. But, you know, it's all good. I think, you know, these sell very well. People don't seem to mind. So it is what it is. But just kind of wish those things were a little bit nicer for, again, $71,000. But moving on to storage space here in the GX. It's, you know, pretty good. Not amazing, but not bad. You have large pockets here in the doors with a bottle holder. In the center here, you have right by this heated seat controls, you'll see a little pocket you push back with 2 USB jacks, an auxiliary jack, and a power outlet. And you have this little cubby in here, but it's kind of small. You could probably fit a smaller smartphone or something like that in there. So some space there. Then you have these 2 cup holders with this cover. Then you have the center armrest as well, which does have some padding to it. Pretty comfortable for resting your elbow on, just not the most plush thing, but
yeah, that's
not
nice.
too bad. These also do slide independently, so you can have both sides either further, you know, forward or backwards. And then you open that up and you'll see a little removable coin tray, which does have some felt lining, which is a nice feeling material there. But then you have this huge bin, which is great. It's really awesome, except this bin has this like thing that they didn't even bother to glue in. It's just literally loose in here. And I mean, that is just,
this is like one nice piece of felt. This is what you get in here.
I just wish they would have attached it. It's just like, I don't know, just some things just aren't making sense to me. I mean, obviously it's very easy to fix. You just get a little bit of glue yourself and put that in place, but just don't know why.
Could void the warranty.
Yep. Yeah, can't have any aftermarket glue. Tisk tisk. But yeah, so that's the only thing there, but it is a nice size bin, so I will give it that. Maybe that's the nitpicky thing. It's just, again, $71,000, and you have stuff like that. It's just a little out of character for the luxury segment, I think. Moving on to the back seat here in the GX 460. So this is a 3-row vehicle. The third row is interesting. First, we'll talk about the second row here. It's not the most comfortable second row seats, I will say that. They're not horrible, but they're reasonably spacious. That is one thing. You have tons of headroom, and the seats do slide forwards and backwards, and with them slid all the way back, I have several inches of legroom to spare, being 5'9" and sitting behind myself. So plenty of space there. You do have pockets in those doors, and there's also a little flip-up cup holder there in the sides. Not the most secure thing in the world, but I guess that does help with making it easy to crawl through the middle in between those seats there. Although you do have little fold-down armrests too, which our rear seat passengers kind of complained about a little bit whenever we were driving them around. They just think it was kind of weird the way you have to position those armrests, but I personally don't think it's too bad. It's kind of similar to a lot of other vehicles in this segment. When you look forward, you'll see their own climate controls back there, and a new addition for 2020 here is you do have 2 USB jacks back there as well. Until 2020, you didn't have that, so they did do a little bit of an upgrade here to this interior, but yeah. And then you also do have a rear entertainment system as well, but those screens are tiny too. And even in the LX 570, they have bigger screens. These ones are small and also look very dated. As you can see, the screen's about the size of like my index finger with how tall those screens are. It's pretty small, but they come with headphones and a remote and all that kind of stuff. And that is an optional package. You don't have to get that, but it is bundled with the Mark Levinson stereo. So that whole $1,100 package or whatever does include those as well. So if you want the good stereo, you're just going to get those screens anyway, so you have to make that decision of whether or not you want the good stereo and the screens or not. Yeah, I guess it's nice that they give you the option, but it's a pretty underwhelming rear entertainment system, I think, as far as screen size at least. But anyway, so that's the second row. Now the third row, getting into it is fairly easy. You have a lever there you just pull up, and it does slide forward pretty easily. It would be nice if it was powered, like stuff like the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade even have power second rows. But anyway, it doesn't, and you just pull the lever up. And then getting in that third row, it is small. It's just like 2 jump seats basically, and I do fit back there with the second row seat slid all the way backwards. It is a little bit of a tight squeeze. My knees are jamming into the seat back there, but I'm not a pretzel. I'm just really tight, and so it's okay in a pinch for adults, but I would say you're going to want to use that for kids mostly. You'll see cup holders back there as well, but there's enough headroom and everything. But the amazing thing though is, yes, you do have a third row, but then when you go to look at the trunk with that third row in place, you have like 3 inches of space there. Like you could maybe like lay a baseball bat down back there. That's about as much space as you have. Aside from that, and so basically it means you have no trunk space. You can't even bring home groceries if you have that third row up. If you put the third row down, then it is a decent amount of space. Certainly not best in class or anything. This isn't going to be as roomy as basically all the competition, either with a third row or without. It's just pretty small. You do have a 120 volt power outlet back there as well, which is a nice inclusion. There's no storage underneath the floor or anything like that either, so that is kind of weird. Now it is slightly better than the LX 570 because that had those weird seats that just flipped up to the sides and really limited your cargo space. This has a normal thing that folds into the floor, so it's a little bit better with its execution. It's just, man, you have no space behind that third row.
Yeah, you really don't.
Which is kind of crazy. But another cool thing though, speaking of that trunk space, is that you have the door which swings out to the side, which is a very cool, different thing that most others, just have a power tailgate that goes up. For this to have the sidearm thing is kind of a cool touch. If you're into that, it's just kind of an interesting difference from all the other competitors. But yes, so overall, the GX is decent. I think it's just, when you don't update a car for 10 years, like this is, how it goes, and again, they sell a decent amount of these. People love them. The resale value is really good. These things like hardly depreciate, because they haven't changed it in 10 years. So you can buy one that's a couple years old for, the same money basically.
Yeah, and then you could just literally get the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like traveling back in time if you want to be in this car. It really is.
Yeah, this is the car for someone who wishes they were still in 2010, here you go. I mean, it is nice, and I get that, it's truck based and it's not supposed to really compete directly with all the fancy stuff that's newer these days.
And that's okay.
Yes. Yeah, it is okay. It's just, you know, from a reviewing standpoint, it's just for $71,000, you're not getting very good value for money as far as features and luxury stuff goes. But you're getting a V8 engine that will probably outlive me. You're going to get a truck that can handle anything you can throw at it with awesome off-road capability and all that stuff. And I'll explain more of that in my driving review. So that's what you're paying for here with the Lexus, is reliability and the fact that this thing can go anywhere and can handle whatever you throw at it. So if those two things are of high importance to you and you're not so worried about luxury, you know, this might be something that appeals to you if you don't want to go for the Toyota stuff for some reason. But yeah, overall, it's an interesting interior. It was an experience.
But I think it's still nice. Even though every time I got in here, I was like, are we in 2010? Did I just time travel? I don't know. Even though I felt that way, it's still really nice. It's comfy, it's great.
Yeah, it's comfortable, and for a lot of people, just having a comfortable cruiser, that's all they want with this. They don't care about fancy tech and, you know, padding everywhere and stuff, and so for them it'll be just fine. But anyway, let us know your thoughts on the GX 460 here in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.